welcome to the first episode of the podcast. I'm very excited. I already recorded the intro once, but the little your phone's at 20% thing popped up and stopped the video. So I charged my phone for like 2 hours and now we're back. Anyway, this is the first episode of the podcast. I don't have a name for it. There's like a little bit of me that wants to call it Pillow Talk because I'm like gonna be sitting in my bed, but I feel like that's really stupid. But I also feel like it could work. Let me know your opinion and then I'll formulate whether or not it's funny as a joke or funny unironically. For today, I'm going to actively avoid prefacing anything because I think I'm really good at prefacing myself, because I feel like, especially with this kind of stuff where like it is my own thing and like I can't just expect people to like get what I'm trying to do. I feel like I need to explain it. But I think having a podcast is pretty straightforward. I do like the biggest thing that I'm worried about for the podcast is that I don't have like a co-host. I don't plan on having guests. I'm sure I will have a guest at some point, but I don't like know how to navigate a full, like I'm planning on it being like 45 minutes probably. I don't really know how to navigate that much conversation just by myself. So wish me luck. I have a microphone, so audio quality will hopefully be a little bit better. When I recorded the first intro, I listened back and it was clipping a little bit. So I'm trying to keep my voice in like a monotone state. Let me talk about just like what's going on in my life for a little bit, and then I do have topics that I wanted to, not topics, it's more like, okay, so with the podcast, I think it's most likely not going to be quite as art focused just because there is so much to talk about. Like I'm sure that stuff will continue to be brought up, just like the vlogs and whatever, but the like stuff that I'm going to be talking about, I think is just a lot more like general. But I guess I will talk about the website. New blog is coming out. I think I'm going to publish it Monday or Sunday. But new blog is written. The blog is back. We have some new articles if you haven't read the last two that I published. Just lots of stuff going on. I think I'm just gonna kind of like cycle through different ways. Like I'm always gonna do a video and then I'll cycle through like what writing thing I'm gonna do, whether it's a article, essay, or blog or whatever. But photojournal still getting updated. So my recent life, I've just been working. I worked 9 hours yesterday and it was fucking brutal, but I'm trying to get back. So to deal with the job that I have, it's very much recommended to have a hobby, because all of my coworkers on the 9 hour shifts, if we have to work 9 hour shifts, all of my coworkers always end up just like watching movies or like playing on their phones or like doing homework, study, whatever. But it's always just like sitting at the computer. And that's perfectly fine. I've done that for one of my shifts, many of my shifts before. I try not to do that for my 9 hour shift just because I don't like staring at a screen for that long. But to avoid that, I read a lot. So I read a good portion, like a majority of what I read out of Song of Achilles, I read at work in one day. Because I literally, like, I don't even think I listened to a podcast that day. Like, I think I just sat down and, like, read throughout the entire shift. But I've been crocheting. I remember when I went to Kate's house before, like, back in March, I was looking through this book that she had. It was that one girl, but she kind of blew up because she remade Harry Styles, I think it was, jacket. She like crocheted a copy of a jacket that Harry Styles wore, and she like blew up. I think she was in Vogue for it. But she, I think, recently published a book about all of her like crocheting patterns and whatnot, and I like really, really desperately want to like do that because growing up, I went to a really weird school. And a lot of our stuff was focused on like art stuff or whatever. And I think that's why I am the way I am now. But because so much of our stuff was art focused, we were like taught how to crochet, how to knit, how to sew, how to embroider. And I kind of fell out of it after 8th grade once we like stopped doing that. Just because like what high school freshman is going to just crochet on their free time? At least not me. So I stopped doing it and just kind of fell out of practice. And there were definitely times over the past like 5-6 years that I've like randomly picked up crochet stuff and like tried my best. But recently I've been actually trying to get back into it just because I have so much free time. Like I can just sit down and do it. And like I have the time to like practice or whatever. Anyway, I tried making a tank top, and I did like a waffle knit, but I think the hook was too big because it just wasn't looking the way I think it should have. And then I tried making one of those cat ear hats, but I don't know why I have this issue. I don't know if the issue is that I start off tighter and then as I go, like my loops get looser. Or if it's like, I don't know, like I'm skipping ones or like adding too many in the same. It always ends up getting like, I'm making a circle, right? It's a hat. And it always starts tighter or it's smaller than the big one. And I need to like fix that because I want to crochet fun stuff. Anyway, I'm like not telling fun stories right now. I went on a date Monday. Let's get into that. Let's talk about the date. So, this guy and I have been talking for like a while. And not like talking, but just like he'll send me a message every once in a while and I'll respond and then we like go 2 weeks without texting. But he's like funny. Like he's definitely someone who like giggled his way into my pants, you know? But we went out Monday. We went to some vegan place. Girl, I try to be respectful. Definitely not. I genuinely don't think I'm like a good person to date. I've been thinking about that recently. Like, okay, on a very, very blanket level, the thought of being on a first date with me and coming into this apartment and like meeting my roommates and like seeing the 15 bongs and like all the shit, like I say 15 as if we literally don't have a single one because ours are broken. But like that would be, I think, a nightmare. I have never gone on a first date with someone and been introduced to their friends, like the first time meeting them. And the thought of like some of the very, very like just normal men that I have brought into this house, that my roommates have brought into this house, what their thought process is, being introduced to people like me or my roommates and seeing our apartment and like the life we live. Because I think there's like, I've talked so much about this with like my friends. There is a phenomenon about the Muppets. Not about the Muppets. About men kind of hyperfixating or fantasizing about a certain kind of person and not understanding that a majority of the time, if someone looks that way, they are that way. Because I think there's two ways it can go. There are people who look cool and interesting as like a mask. They just like see it on TikTok, so they did it, but they're just shit. Like as people, like they suck and they're not cool and they don't have the right to be cool. Or there's the people who are actually cool and look cool because they are cool. Like bitches that come from the Midwest, always actually cool. Bitches that come from California, Phoenix, Texas, usually not as cool. Usually a front. I'm very much generalizing, but like I think you can kind of know what I mean. Like it's the same as like New York transplants. Like the people who are like they live in New York and their moving there was no different than anyone else's, and the length of time they've spent in New York has been no shorter than anyone else's, but you can just tell they're not New York. It's like that. Like, they check all the boxes, but just like their vibe is not the vibe that they're trying to give. Like, they're trying to give Manic Pixie Dream Girl, and they're giving Coquette. You know, like, personality versus appearance. Anyway, men don't understand that. Men don't understand that, like, there are people that look a certain way because of the life they've lived. There are so many people from the East Coast, like, grunge punk scene is, like, huge on the East Coast, but, like, in the Midwest, huge. Every once in a while, I'll be, like, talking, and I'll have a moment where I realize I'm just talking to my iPhone 12 and not a person, and I can't just be like, what was I saying? Like, I'm not having a conversation. I'm literally in my room talking to myself, and, like, I need to be able to carry the conversation. For me, I think, I was always a very, like, different person than the environment that I grew up in. Conservative, mostly white, mostly straight. By mostly straight, I mean I knew one gay person until I came out. And then, like, some of my friends came out too, and whatever. But genuinely, like, up until senior year, I wasn't... Let me think about this. Until high school, I did not have a gay male friend, I think. It doesn't matter. Point is, I was very isolated. So the personality and the archetype and the clothing, the tattoos, the piercing, the way I accessorize, the way I make people see me, that is a product of my life. And I think there's a phenomenon with men in which they don't understand that, not the other thing. I know I said they don't understand that and emphasize that to the other thing. They don't understand that. They don't understand that people that look like me usually look like me because, I don't know, they look like me. So then they meet people like me, and I've talked about this with my roommate, like, me and my roommate are quirky, eccentric, like, fucking weird. We're weird people. And men will meet us because we check off the boxes. There's, like, the certain amount of things that, like, those men that hyperfixate on, like, oh, I want a crazy girl. I want the big titty goth girlfriend. I want the girl with BPD. And then they meet them, and they're actually girls with BPD. They're actually goth. And they can't fathom that these people own consumption. They think, like, oh, it's like a funny TikTok trend to be a big titty goth chick. And then they meet a big titty goth chick, and she's actually goth, and she actually doesn't fuck with the fact that you played lacrosse for 4 years in high school. She would much rather talk to you if you read Edgar Allan Poe. And you genuinely can't understand why. Why would she not be into you? Because she's not fucking into you. You know? Anyway. Went on this date Monday. It went kind of okay. It went well. I thought it went well. We haven't talked in 3 days. So I'm assuming it didn't go well. But I don't really know what went wrong. Because, like, it felt like shit was good until he left me on open. So it doesn't matter. Maturing is realizing love is literally meeting strangers and seeing if you won't kill each other. I had this thought the other day, and it made me realize, like, especially in online dating, which I think is, like, largely what people are my age do at this point. Like, no one's fucking meeting people anymore. It is genuinely, like, two strangers have nothing in common, no mutual friends. They both found each other attractive. They had a similar taste in music. they could maintain good enough conversation to validate, okay, let's fuck. And that's fucking crazy to me. Like, we are literally, like, the amount of times that I have had dates and been like, or, okay, let's frame it differently. The amount of times that my friends have gone on dates and I, like, need their location, like, I don't think that's new, but it is, the premise of dating, especially online, is crazy. What I'm doing, or what we're doing, is, like, alien. Like, it's not, I don't think this is how we were supposed to repopulate. Like, we were not supposed to just, like, see an attractive person on the side of the road and be like, that one. That doesn't make sense. Like, I think the way marriage is supposed to work, the way dating is supposed to work, is your dad picks out someone whose family's wealth will benefit you, so you get married. That, like, I think that would make at least my life so much easier. Yes, do I want them to be attractive? Absolutely. But, like, having that tie, like, if your families are friends, I think people should stop meeting strangers and, like, I think people should stop finding the one. You know? We need to stop searching. I think we're at a point where we have searched enough. I think that if you're born somewhere, you need to date someone who has already met your family, you have known for at least 2 years, and lives in the same hometown. Because this whole, like, searching for other people in, like, other places, it's stupid. Except, like, for me, I think that, like, I should be allowed to do whatever I want because, like, at the end of the day, I am what other people want. Like, I don't think other people should be stopped from finding me. But I think you should stay in your own area. You know, like, I think that anyone who wants... Wow. It was a butterfly. It was a big butterfly. Anyway, anyone who wants someone like me, like, should look for me. And if, like, you know someone that's looking for someone like me, like, please send them my information. But I don't think that someone from Maryland should be, like, looking for someone from California. You know? Like, yes, you might be destined to be together, and, like, that's just, like, the way the cookie crumbled, and that you live on the opposite side of the country, and you're supposed to just, like, make it work. But, like, that's just really annoying, and I think that you should settle for someone closer to you, because, I don't know, I just think we're spreading too much. We're moving too much. I miss the, like, era where people would stay where they grew up in. Not me, obviously. Ooh. I hope that was probably bad. Not me, obviously. But I just don't really think it's, like, fair. I want to go back to the era in which people would just, like, be born and then, like, get a job and, like, die all within, like, 1 block of each other. I just think that's the way that, like, God had intended us to go. Is that Adam? That was Adam. Aw. For an item to be vintage, there can only be one. So, I went thrifting the other day with my roommate. Super fun. We met, like, 2 of the nicest women I've ever met. I love women so much. The way that women interact, like, my interactions with women versus my interactions with men, like, if I had gone to a fucking antique store and it was 2, like, middle-aged white men, I would not have had nearly as an enjoyable experience. But these 2 middle-aged women, they just got me. They knew. And that's something that I don't think anyone else would ever be able to do. Unfortunately, this antique store was overpriced. And that, like, a lot of the stuff that I was finding that I thought was cool, I couldn't afford. And it got me to a point where I was thinking, there's this antique clothing store down the street from me. And the first time I went in, there was a cropped Hooters t-shirt being sold for $45. The thrift stores that sell vintage Harley Davidson t-shirts for $90. It got me to a point where I have come to the conclusion that if there is more than one, you can't mark up the price because it's vintage. You know? Okay. There were these 2 paintings at the store that I went to this week. And they were exactly the same. But both of them were being sold. They weren't like great paintings either. Like they were just like, it was like just a pencil fucking sketch of like flowers. And it wasn't like a metal frame or anything. Just fucking wood. And they were both being sold for like, I want to say like $30, which isn't a lot, obviously, but the double of them got me to the point where you cannot mark it as like, oh, it's vintage, so like we can sell it. Like that was a painting that I could easily find at Goodwill for $5. And there's 2 of them in your store, both of which are selling for $30. It doesn't work. If there's more than one and it is not like made out of diamond, I get that like obviously I'm using an example, $30 for those paintings is not a lot. Like they were vintage, so it makes sense. My point being that like I think people think that because something is old, that means it has value. But I don't think that's the case. I think that if it is cool, it has value. But if it is old, unless there's like one of them or like very few and it like is valuable, like old themed shit, I get it being expensive. Old Star Wars shit from like the year that Star Wars came out, it's gonna be expensive. But if it's just like a random vintage item, then like why is it expensive? It's like okay, new rule, if it is just old, don't sell it for the price of something that's like vintage, you know? If it is vintage, it needs to be like valued because it's old, not just like it's old. I think I'm making sense. If I had this in 40 years and tried to sell a vintage swan water spout, what are they called? Water pot? This is $5 at Target. There are millions of them. But just because it's 40 years old, I'm going to sell it for $60 because it's good material. You know, it's sturdy. It's ceramic. You know, like a good amount of craftsmanship went into this. So I'm going to sell it for $60 because it's old. That doesn't make sense. It has nothing worth anything. You know, like it's literally just an old swan. If it is old and not cool, then sell it for fucking $3 because that's literally old. Like, you're selling me an old painting for $30 and it's not cute and it has no value. That shit is gonna fall apart in 2 fucking seconds if I like drop it. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. Society is putting pressure on kids younger and younger every year. This is not a new thought whatsoever. But I have realized, or like, I've been noticing that, what, is that the video of the ducks? I don't know what video that is. I put so much pressure on myself to be successful at like a young age. I was thinking about the fact that fucking Billie Eilish is 20. Billie Eilish is, or is she 21? She was born in 01, wasn't she? She might be a year older than me. I put so much pressure on myself to like be successful because honestly at the end of the day, like I'm not really planning on being very old, or at least not, yeah. I'm doing my podcast.
Fuck, every single song just changed. I had like a whole, I fucked up! God damn it!
Can I hit your vape? I saw a huge butterfly. Like it just like flew down, and like mid-sentence I was just like, oh wow. My mom always said that hummingbirds are my grandpa.
Yeah.
That's so cute. Do you want to join the podcast? Say something. I was in the shower the other day listening to how the fuck do you pronounce it? Tolemania or whatever it is, the Ethel Cain song. I was on my hands and knees, like really just feeling everything.
Yes.
Here.
Every single time I do that, I'm like, oh, I wish Krishna was here for this.
Okay, but like, say something.
Give me a topic. I like this little micro. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. You can't give me this.
If you just broke the audio for the rest of my video.
I'm gonna go.
So that was momentary guest star Caitlin. So I feel like when my parents were younger, it was much more acceptable to live with your parents. My mom moved in with her stepmom and me and my sister for a while. My mom and my dad lived with my grandma after they had my dad's mom, after they had my sister. So many people, like, it was very common for, like, that group, I feel like, or at least that age range. Like, it was socially acceptable to, like, live back with your parents. But then this, like, narrative started being pushed that millennials weren't moving out and that millennials were the ones who were living with their parents, which is also very true. Because I think that, what was it, Gen X? Gen X had, like, people, I think, moving out earlier, but then moving back in. And, like, they had jobs and whatever. Like, that was what saved them from, like, the boomer slander. And millennials were, like, the opposite, where they weren't getting jobs, they were not ever moving out, yada, yada, yada. So now there's so much pressure on this generation, on my generation, to, like, be successful, to, like, move out, go to college, get a job, provide to society as quickly as fucking possible. And, like, that... Ew, there's a little plastic guy. Anyway, sorry, I got distracted. So now we're at a point where, like, people like me, at least, Capricorns maybe, have so much, like, internalized pressure that they put on themselves of, like, I'm 20 years old and, like, I make minimum wage. Like, I'm a fucking failure. Because, okay, I think there's, like, two parts of it. Because there's another part where, like, or no, I don't think it's a separate part. But Gen X is very much like, we're putting the pressure on ourselves also, but because of the pressure put on us. But because we're so able to be successful on our own because of things like TikTok, and, like, that's why we have so many more people going into industries and becoming professionals in careers that don't really involve having a job. That's why, like, influencers are such a big thing. Bitch, we need fucking nurses. We need oil drillers. Don't do that. We need... serve in the military. Stop being an influencer. But that's why we have that. That's why we have This Is Gonna Be the Song of the Summer. That's why we have bitches who know literally nothing about fashion, like, lecturing people on fashion, because they have their own, like, pressure that they're putting on themselves to, like, literally be rich and, like, retire by the time they're, like, 30, which I very much have myself. But I keep having to, like, reiterate within myself that, like, I am also, like, as much as I'm 20 and making minimum wage and I'm a failure, I'm also only 20 and I have a job and like I'm doing shit. What was that noise? Okay, well that's it. We're done. I hope you really enjoyed today's podcast. I love you all. Sorry for the interruption. I have a weird roommate. She's just like really strange and like really likes to like just like be weird. So I'm really sorry that you guys had to experience that, because that's just not something that I would ever want you to have to deal with. Because I have to deal with it every day. And it's something that I've written home about. Anyway, Monday is Kate's birthday. So today we're having like a party and shit for, not even a party. It's like, we're just gonna have like wine and cheeses, and we're gonna all be wearing pajamas and play board games, and it's gonna be so nice. But yeah, I think that's it, honestly. Maybe this episode is just gonna be 30 minutes, that's fine. We'll get into media. I have been listening to a lot of Cocteau Twins. I know I said that in the last episode, or the last vlog, but a lot of Cocteau Twins going on. What is it? Your Mouth, Your Eyes, or some shit like that. That song got a grip on me. Adam, my friend Adam, just fucking told me about this cover that Deftones did of a Cocteau Twins song that I like. That's a good one. That's a good one. Another topic that I wrote down that I was waiting to get into until media is American Dad. I have been a Family Guy slut forever. And then after Family Guy was like Rick and Morty. Tried to get into Bob's Burgers. Big Mouth. One watch through. I'll watch it once, but I don't really feel the need to like go back and watch it again. American Dad is funny as shit. Like, I don't know if it's because they have two main characters that are fucking stoners and a fucking gay ass alien, but it's just all like it really speaks to me. I feel like a gay alien. I feel like a stoner, you know? I think it's underappreciated, and I think that if we all got out of like our own asses and pretended that Succession was a good show, people would be able to enjoy like actual comedy, you know? Well thought out, well structured, like it's very story driven. But I think American Dad really speaks a lot about like our society and how we're structured. So I would really recommend that like everyone, especially in like these confusing times, watch American Dad, just because like I think it does really, like, it helps me a lot with finding my identity in my patriotism. So I think everyone who has doubts about like America should watch that, because I think it's enlightening. But yeah, I think that's it for today's episode. First episode of the podcast under the books. I'm gonna say I'm done. I hope you all enjoyed. I know I enjoyed. I hope Kate enjoyed. But yeah, I'm gonna post another one next weekend. It's just gonna be the new thing. Podcast starting up. So leave me alone.